The notification popped up on my phone screen at 11:42 a.m., bright and cheerful against the lock screen. Transaction alert. $482.50 at the Gilded Lily. Card ending in 8890. I stared at it. I was sitting in my car, a sleek, charcoal sedan I'd bought with a bonus check 3 months ago, parked 2 blocks away from my childhood home. The engine was off, ticking as it cooled, and the leather steering wheel was cold under my palms. It was May 12th, 2019. Mother's Day. And honestly, I felt like an idiot. I had a gift in the passenger seat. A cashmere wrap, the kind that costs more than my first car did, wrapped in silver paper with a silk ribbon. I had cleared my schedule for this. I had told my boss, a man who thought weekends were a suggestion rather than a rule, that I was unavailable until Monday morning. I had ignored 3 crisis emails from the London office. So, I picked up my phone. I dialed my mother. She picked up on the 3rd ring, her voice breathless and loud, competing with the clatter of silverware and the low hum of conversation in the background. "Elena?" she asked, sounding surprised. "Is everything okay? You never call on Sundays." "Hi, Mom," I said, my voice steady. "Happy Mother's Day. I was just wondering what time I should head over. I didn't get the group text for the reservation." Silence. Not the quiet kind, the awkward, frantic kind where you can practically hear the gears turning in someone's head as they try to manufacture a polite lie. "Oh," she said finally. "Oh, honey, we're already eating." My stomach dropped. "You're eating?" "Well, yes," she rushed on, her tone shifting from surprise to that familiar, condescending defense mechanism she used whenever she was cornered. "We didn't think you could make it. Chloe is here with the kids, and Aunt Linda came down, and honestly, Elena, we just assumed you were working." "I told you last week I took the day off," I said. "Did you?" She laughed, a light, dismissive sound. "I must have forgotten. You're always so married to that job of yours. We didn't want to bother you with family stuff when you're probably stressing about spreadsheets or whatever it is you do." Spreadsheets. I was the director of operations for a global logistics firm. I managed supply chains that kept hospitals stocked and factories running. I made 6 figures. I had bought my parents' new HVAC system last winter when their furnace died. They didn't know I paid for it directly. I told them I knew a guy who gave a discount. "Right," I said. "Spreadsheets." "Besides," she added, her voice dropping to a whisper, "it's really a day for the mothers, isn't it? Chloe needs the support. She's exhausted with the twins. You know how hard real life can be." The implication hit me like a physical slap. Real life. Because I didn't have children. Because I wore suits instead of yoga pants. Because I chose a career over a traditional domestic path. My life wasn't real. It was a hobby, a cold, unfeeling distraction. "I understand," I said. "I knew you would," she chirped, relieved. "You're so practical. Anyway, the appetizers are here. We should do coffee next week. Maybe Tuesday, if you have an opening in your little calendar." "Sure, Mom." "Love you. Bye." The line went dead. I looked at the phone again. The transaction alert was still there. $482.50. See, here's the thing about the Gilded Lily. It's expensive. It's the kind of place where they fold the napkins into swans and charge you $5 for filtered water. And the card my mother used to pay for it? The card ending in 8890? It wasn't hers. Technically, it was an authorized user card on my account. I had given it to her 3 years ago in 2016 for emergencies. "Just in case the car breaks down," I'd said. "Just in case you need prescriptions," I'd said. But slowly, emergencies had morphed into groceries, then hair appointments, then, apparently, a Mother's Day brunch that excluded the person paying for it. I sat there for a long time. I watched a leaf drift down from the oak tree above me and land on the windshield. I looked at the cashmere wrap in the passenger seat. I thought about the last 10 years of my life, the missed birthdays because I was working to pay off their debts, the loans to my sister Chloe that never came back, the way I was always the cold one, the ATM, the workaholic. They didn't hate me, they just didn't respect me. But wait, if I was just a checkbook to them, what would happen if the checkbook closed? Not with a bang, not with a scream, but with a silent, terrifying click. I opened the banking app on my phone. My finger hovered over the card settings. I could cancel it right now. I could leave them stuck at the restaurant with a declined card and a bill they couldn't pay. It would be satisfying. It would be loud. But that wasn't my style. I was a fixer. I dealt with logistics. I dealt with long-term strategy. If I cut them off now, they'd play the victim. They'd call me, crying, saying it was a mistake, and I'd look like the petty daughter who ruined Mother's Day over a misunderstanding. No, I needed to be smarter. I needed to vanish. I started the car. I didn't drive to the restaurant. I didn't drive to my parents' house. I drove to the post office. I had a key to a P.O. box there, something I used for business mail so my home address stayed private. I stood in the lobby surrounded by the smell of dust and paper, and I pulled a small black notebook out of my purse. This was my ledger. It wasn't official. It was just a habit I'd picked up from my grandfather, the only person in the family who understood the value of $1 before he passed in '98. He liked me best. In this book, I tracked everything. Every loan, every gift, every time I bailed them out. April 2019. Chloe's car repair, $1,200. March 2019. Mom's dental work, $800. February 2019. Dad's golf dues, $350. I looked at the total for the year. It was staggering. I wasn't just a daughter. I was the structural integrity of the Vance family, and they had just told me I wasn't part of the foundation. Okay, I whispered to the empty room. I took the cashmere wrap out of the bag. I walked over to the donation bin in the corner of the lobby, the one marked for a local women's shelter. I dropped the wrap inside. It landed with a soft, expensive thud. Then I took out my phone again. I didn't cancel the card. Not yet. Instead, I logged into the card's dashboard and set a strict spending limit. Limit, $500. They had just spent $482.50. That left them exactly $17.50 for the rest of the billing cycle. Then I went to my contacts. I selected Mom. I selected Dad. I selected Chloe. I didn't block them. That would send a message, "User is busy." I went into the settings and turned off Read Receipts. I silenced notifications for their thread. I archived the chat so it wouldn't appear on my main screen. I was going to disappear in plain sight. I walked back to my car, feeling lighter than I had in years. They wanted me to be married to my job? Fine. I would be the best spouse that job ever had. I was going to work, and they were going to find out exactly how expensive real life actually was. Monday morning arrived with the kind of aggressive sunshine that usually gave me a headache, but today it felt like a spotlight on my new life. I was at my desk by 6:30 a.m. The office was quiet, smelling of industrial carpet cleaner and the fresh coffee I'd just brewed, and for the first time in years, I wasn't dreading the inevitable, "Did you have a nice weekend?" questions. I buried myself in the quarterly logistics reports for the Asian markets, tracking shipping containers like they were puzzle pieces. It was clean. It made sense. My phone sat face down on the desk, buzzing occasionally against the wood grain, but I didn't flip it over. I knew who it was. My mother usually called on Mondays to debrief about the weekend I hadn't attended, expecting me to ask how the brunch was so she could complain about the service while subtly reminding me I wasn't there. I let it buzz. By noon, I had 3 missed calls and a text. "Call me when you get a second. Weird thing with the bank." I didn't smile. I just took a bite of my salad, typed a quick email to the warehouse manager in distribution, and went back to work. I wasn't ignoring her technically. I was just doing exactly what she said I did. I was being married to my job. Tuesday came, May 14th, 2019. This was the day the rubber met the road. My mother did her grocery shopping on Tuesdays, religious as a monk, always at the upscale organic market where the produce was misted every 10 minutes and the prices were criminal. She didn't look at price tags. She didn't have to. At 10:15 a.m., my phone lit up with a notification from the banking app. Transaction declined. Whole Foods Market. Amount $214.50. Reason: exceeds spending limit. I stared at the screen, sipping my lukewarm tea. I could picture it perfectly. She would be at the register, her cart full of artisanal cheeses and wine, a line of impatient people behind her. She would have swiped the card with that careless, elegant flick of her wrist. The machine would have beeped, that harsh, rejecting buzz. She would have laughed nervously. "Oh, try it again, dear. It's a chip thing." They would have tried it again. Buzz. Then the flushing of her cheeks, the scramble to find her own purse, digging past the tissues and the lipstick to find her debit card, the one she hated using because it feels so plebeian. 2 minutes later, my phone rang. Mom calling. I let it go to voicemail. I was in a meeting with myself. I waited until 5 p.m. to listen to the message. Her voice was tight, pitched a little higher than usual, laced with the panic of someone who has been publicly embarrassed. "Elena, it's Mom. I'm at the store and the card didn't work. It was so humiliating. There was a line. I had to use the joint account with your father, and you know he watches that like a hawk. Call the bank immediately. It must be a fraud freeze." I didn't call the bank. Instead, I waited another hour, then sent a text. "Hey, Mom. So sorry, crazy day at the office. Logistics nightmare with a supplier in Hamburg. I'll look into the card when I can, but the bank's fraud department is probably closed for the night. Try to use cash for now? Love you." I hit send. It was the perfect corporate non-answer. Polite, vague, and completely unhelpful. Wednesday passed in silence. Thursday, my sister Chloe called. Chloe didn't call unless she wanted something, or unless Mom had deployed her as a flying monkey to guilt-trip me. I answered this time, putting the phone on speaker while I organized my filing cabinet. "Hey, Chloe," I said, flipping through a folder. "What's up?" "What is going on with you?" she asked, skipping the pleasantries. "Mom is freaking out. She said the card is broken and you won't fix it." "I'm working on it," I lied smoothly. "It's a security protocol thing. The bank thinks there's suspicious activity because of the location variance." "Well, fix it faster," Chloe huffed. "The twins have soccer registration on Friday, and I was going to use that card to pay the league fees. It's like $300. I stopped filing. I held a piece of paper in mid-air. "You were going to use Mom's emergency card for soccer fees?" I asked. "Mom said it was fine," Chloe said defensively. "She said you wouldn't mind. You make plenty, right? Besides, Jeff's commission check hasn't cleared yet, and we're tight." Jeff was her husband. Jeff had been waiting for a commission check since 2014. "I can't authorize it right now, Chloe," I said, my voice dropping into my director of operations tone. Cool, detached, final. "The account is under review. If I try to push a charge through, they might lock my entire credit profile. I can't risk that with the quarterly audit coming up." "So what am I supposed to do?" "Ask Jeff," I suggested. "You're being a bitch," she said. "And you're interrupting my workday," I countered. "I have to go. The London team is waiting." I hung up. My heart was pounding, a slow, heavy thud against my ribs. I had never said no to Chloe before. Not once. I had paid for her prom dress, her textbooks, her bail that one time in college she didn't want Mom to know about. I sat there waiting for the guilt to crush me, but it didn't come. Instead, I felt powerful. I looked at the ledger in my notebook. May 2019 savings, $214.50. Groceries, plus $300. Soccer. Total saved, $514.50. I highlighted the number in yellow. The weekend approached. Memorial Day was coming up on the 27th. Usually, this meant a mandatory barbecue at my parents' house, where I would be expected to bring the steaks because I knew a butcher, and then man the grill while the real mothers sat on the patio drinking sangria. On Friday, the group text pinged. "Mom, BBQ at 2 p.m. on Monday. Elena, can you pick up 10 ribeyes and maybe some of that potato salad from the deli?" I looked at the text. 10 ribeyes. That was easily $200, plus the deli salad, plus the gas to drive out there, plus the emotional toll of being ignored while I cooked their food. I typed my reply carefully. Hi, everyone. Sounds lovely, but I'm afraid I can't make it this year. The audit prep is brutal, and I have to work through the holiday weekend to catch up. Enjoy the steak. The response was immediate. Chloe, seriously? It's Memorial Day. Mom, but your father was looking forward to seeing you, and who is going to grill? I didn't reply to the grilling question. That wasn't my problem. I'll send over a little something so I'm there in spirit, I texted. I went online to a corporate gift basket site, the kind we used for distant vendors we didn't really know. I ordered the standard fruit and nut tower. It cost $49.99. It was impersonal, generic, and completely lacking in warmth. It arrived on Monday morning. I spent Memorial Day in my apartment. I cleaned my closet. I read a book. I ordered Thai food and ate it right out of the carton while watching a documentary about deep-sea exploration. It was quiet. At 3 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was a picture from Mom. It was the fruit basket sitting on the kitchen counter next to a thawing package of hot dogs, clearly the backup plan since I didn't bring steaks. It looked pathetic. Thanks for the fruit, she wrote. We missed you. Uncle Steve had to grill and he burned the burgers. I took a sip of my iced tea. I zoomed in on the photo. In the background, I could see Chloe looking annoyed, holding a generic beer instead of the craft IPA I usually brought. I could see my dad looking grumpy. They were having a mediocre time, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't there to fix it. I texted back. Bummer about the burgers. Back to the spreadsheets for me. Hope the fruit is good. I put the phone down. I was beginning to realize something terrifying and wonderful. They didn't actually need me. They just wanted me to make things easier. They were surviving without the ribeyes. They were surviving without the soccer fees. Presumably, Jeff found the money or they skipped it. The sky didn't fall because I said no. But the silence? The silence was getting louder. And I knew, with the instinct of a woman who manages supply chains for a living, that the inventory was running low. They could survive a bad BBQ. They could survive a declined grocery run. But the mortgage supplement I paid every June? That was coming up, and that wasn't going to be a glitch. June arrived with a humidity that made the air feel like a wet wool blanket, but inside my office, the climate was controlled, cool, and beautifully predictable. It was June 3rd, 2019. I was staring at a spreadsheet that tracked shipping containers moving from Shenzhen to Long Beach. Green cells meant on time, red meant delayed. My life had become a series of green cells since I stopped fixing everyone else's red ones. But wait, there was one red cell left on my personal calendar. June 5th, property tax gift. See, 5 years ago, my parents had decided to build a sunroom they couldn't afford. They didn't have the cash, so they took out a home equity line of credit. Then, when the property taxes reassessed and jumped by $2,000, they panicked. We're on a fixed income, my mom had wailed in 2014. So, I had stepped in. I paid the difference. In the next year, I paid it again. By 2018, it wasn't a favor anymore. It was a line item in their budget labeled Elena's contribution. It was $2,500. A check I usually wrote with a smile, happy to be the successful daughter who could help. But this year, I opened my checkbook. I looked at the pin. Then I looked at the ledger I had started keeping in May. Current balance of respect, $0. I closed the checkbook. I didn't write the check. I didn't set up the wire transfer. I just went back to tracking my shipping containers. 2 days passed. On June 5th at 9 a.m. sharp, my phone rang. It wasn't a text. It wasn't an email. It was a phone call from the landline at my parents' house. Hello? I answered, putting the call on speaker while I typed an email to a vendor. Elena? My dad's voice. Rare. Usually, Mom handled the finances, or at least the complaining about them. Dad usually just reaped the benefits. Did you send the package? The mail hasn't run yet, but I wanted to check. The package? I asked, feigning ignorance. The check, he said, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. For the county. It's due on the 10th. Your mother is pacing the kitchen. I stopped typing. I swiveled my chair around to look out the window at the city skyline. It looked crisp and sharp. Oh, Dad, I said, injecting just the right amount of distracted corporate stress into my voice. I completely forgot to tell you. I can't do it this year. Silence. You, what? I can't send the check, I repeated. The market took a dip last quarter. Trade wars, you know? My bonus was structured around stock options, and right now they're underwater. I'm actually looking at a pretty tight month myself. It was a lie, a beautiful, tactical lie. My bonus had actually increased. I had just bought a new espresso machine for my apartment that cost more than their dishwasher. But we count on that, my dad stammered. We already spent the pension money on the deposit for the Cape Cod rental. The Cape Cod rental. I froze. Every July, the family went to Cape Cod. My parents, Chloe, Jeff, and the twins. I was usually invited, but only as an afterthought, and I usually ended up sleeping on the pull-out couch while paying for half the groceries. You booked the Cape? I asked. I didn't know you were going. Well, of course we're going, he said, sounding defensive. It's tradition. We assumed. Look, Elena, are you saying you don't have the money? You? You're the director of operations. Operations are expensive, I said coolly. And like Mom said at Mother's Day, real life is hard. Don't throw that in my face, he snapped. Your mother didn't mean it like that. She was stressed. And now I'm stressed, I said. I have to hop on a conference call, Dad. I really hope you guys figure out the tax thing. Maybe cancel the Cape? We can't cancel, he shouted. We'll lose the deposit. That sounds like a logistics problem, I said. Good luck. I hung up. My hand was shaking. Not from fear, but from the adrenaline of finally setting a boundary that had actual financial teeth. They had booked a vacation with my money before they even had it. They had spent my generosity before I offered it. I went back to work. But the day wasn't over. At noon, Chloe texted. Mom is crying. Dad is yelling at the dog. What did you do? I didn't reply. Answer me, Elena. Are you seriously cutting them off? Over a brunch? That is so petty. You have so much money. It's gross. I looked at the text. Gross. That was the word she used. My success, the thing I worked 80-hour weeks for, the thing that paid for her bail and her car repairs was gross to her because I wouldn't let them cannibalize it anymore. I typed back, I'm not cutting anyone off. I just don't have it right now. Ask Jeff to cover it? His commission must be huge by now. I watched the 3 little dots appear, then disappear, then appear again. She didn't reply. I knew why. Jeff didn't have the money. Jeff never had the money. The rest of the week was a masterclass in silence. I didn't reach out. I didn't offer to find a way. I didn't move money from my savings to save their vacation. I just worked. And honestly, it was the most productive week of my career. I renegotiated a contract with a trucking fleet that saved the company 12%. My boss, Marcus, came by my desk on Friday afternoon with a bottle of scotch. You're on fire, Vance, he said, setting the bottle down. Whatever you're doing differently, keep doing it. I just trimmed some dead weight from my schedule, I said, smiling. Smart. I took the scotch home. I poured a glass. And then, on Saturday morning, June 8th, I got the notification I was waiting for. Transaction attempt, Best Buy. Amount, $1,299.99. It was on the emergency card, the one I had capped at $500. They were trying to buy a laptop. Or a TV. Transaction declined. 5 minutes later. Transaction attempt, Best Buy. Amount, $1,299.99. Transaction declined. They were panicking. They were trying to liquidity whatever they could find. Maybe they thought they could buy electronics, return them for cash, and pay the tax bill. Or maybe they just wanted a new TV to comfort themselves because they couldn't go to the Cape. My phone started ringing. Mom. I stared at it. The emergency card was for emergencies, prescriptions, tow trucks, not Best Buy. I let it ring. Then I did something I should have done 3 years ago. I logged into the banking app. I didn't just leave the limit at $500. I clicked Report lost/stolen. Would you like to cancel this card and issue a new one? I clicked yes. New card will arrive in 7 to 10 business days to the primary address. The primary address was my apartment. The card in Mom's wallet was now a useless piece of plastic. I sent a text to the group chat, Mom, Dad, Chloe. Hey guys, just got a fraud alert on the emergency card. Someone tried to spend $1,300 at Best Buy. Crazy! I went ahead and canceled the card to be safe. I'll let you know when the bank sorts it out. Probably hackers. Be careful with your own accounts. I hit send. I took another sip of my coffee. I knew exactly what was happening in that house. The realization was hitting them. The safety net hadn't just frayed, it had snapped. And because I framed it as fraud, they couldn't admit it was them without admitting they were trying to abuse the card I gave them for emergencies. They were trapped by their own entitlement and my sudden cheerful incompetence. I opened my notebook. June 2019. Savings, $2,500. Taxes, plus $1,300. Best Buy attempt. Total, saved, $3,800. I underlined it twice. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about the silence. The glorious, expensive silence of a phone that didn't ring with demands. But I knew my family. They wouldn't go down without a fight. If guilt didn't work and panic didn't work, they would try the one thing that always worked on sensitive Elena. They would use the past. And Sunday was my birthday! I wondered if they even remembered. Sunday, June 9th, my 33rd birthday. Usually, this date was a source of low-grade dread that started building around mid-May, like clockwork. My birthdays were historically family events, which meant I bought the groceries, cooked the dinner, and cleaned up afterwards while my mother told me I looked tired and Chloe asked if I was ever going to freeze my eggs. But this year, I woke up at 8 a.m. The sun was streaming through my blinds, not accusingly, but warmly. I stretched. My apartment was silent. I checked my phone. Mom. Happy birthday! We're making pot roast. Dinner at 5 p.m. sharp. Don't be late. We have a surprise. Pot roast. I hate pot roast. It's gray and sad. My father loves pot roast. Chloe. Happy birthday. Mom says come over early so you can help set up. Help set up? On my birthday? I laughed, a real dry laugh that startled my cat. I didn't type a reply. I didn't feel the familiar pull of obligation, that heavy chain that usually dragged me out of bed and into my car. I got up, made coffee, the good stuff, the beans I usually saved for guests, and sat on my balcony. At 10 a.m., the mail arrived. It was a Sunday, but I had a priority package notification from the bank. I went down to the lobby. There it was, a sleek white envelope. Inside was the replacement credit card, the one I had reported lost. It gleamed under the lobby lights. Elena Vance. Expiration, June 24th. I didn't activate it. I just tucked it into my wallet, right behind my driver's license. The card my mother was currently looking for in her purse, the one she probably thought was just demagnetized, was now officially dead plastic. I went back upstairs. My phone was buzzing. Mom. Elena, are you coming? Dad is worried about the traffic. Mom. Answer your phone. Dad. We need to talk. Today. The tone had shifted. It wasn't happy birthday anymore. It was a summons. They weren't baking a cake. They were setting a trap. The property tax bill was due tomorrow, June 10th. They didn't want to celebrate me. They wanted to corner me in the dining room, hand me a slice of store-bought cake, and then slide the tax bill across the table with a guilty shrug. We just don't have it this year, honey. You understand? I understood perfectly. So, I did what any rational, self-respecting director of operations would do. I executed a pivot. I went to my laptop. I booked a room at the Langham for one night. It was expensive, obscenely so. It cost almost exactly what I would have spent on the family dinner groceries and the inevitable loan they would ask for over dessert. I packed a bag. I drove into the city. By 4 p.m., I was sitting in a plush velvet chair in the hotel lounge, drinking a martini that cost $22. I felt phantom limb pain. I kept reaching for my phone to apologize, to explain, to fix it, but I didn't. At 5:15 p.m., the voicemail notification popped up. I put my earbuds in. "Elena!" My mother's voice was high and tight. "Where are you? The roast is dry. We're all sitting here waiting. Aunt Linda drove down. This is incredibly selfish. You know how much your father looks forward to this. Call me back right now." Selfish. That was their favorite word. It was the weapon they used to keep me in line. If I wasn't giving, I was taking. There was no middle ground where I just existed. I took a sip of my martini. Then, a text from Chloe. "Seriously? Mom is crying again. Dad is losing it. He says if the tax bill isn't paid by tomorrow, the county puts a lien on the house. You have to come fix this." There it was, the truth. It wasn't about the pot roast. It wasn't about Aunt Linda, who, for the record, always criticized my hair. It was about the lien. They had waited until the 11th hour, banking on the fact that I would swoop in like a superhero with a checkbook to save the family estate. I looked at the time. 5:30 p.m. The tax office was closed until tomorrow morning. I typed a reply to the group chat. "So sorry, everyone. Massive crisis at the warehouse. The security system went down and I have to be on site for the reboot. It's going to be an all-nighter. I won't have service in the server room. Enjoy the roast. Love you." I hit send. Then I turned my phone off. Completely off. I ordered room service. I ordered a steak. Medium rare, the way I liked it, not the gray slab my mother would have served. I watched the city lights twinkle below me. I imagined the scene at my parents' house, the confusion, the realization that I wasn't coming, the slow, creeping horror that the Bank of Elena wasn't just closed for the holiday, it had been condemned. My dad would be pacing. My mom would be trying to find someone else to blame. Chloe would be texting Jeff, asking if he could get a payday loan. He couldn't. I slept for 9 hours. When I woke up on Monday morning, June 10th, I turned my phone back on. It exploded. 37 missed calls, 14 voicemails, and a string of texts that read like the 5 stages of grief. Denial. "She'll be here. She's just late." Anger. "You ungrateful brat. We raised you better." Bargaining. "Just pay the tax and we'll pay you back when the bond matures in 2025. Depression. "How could you do this to us?" Acceptance. There was no acceptance. But there was one text from my dad that stood out, sent at 11:42 p.m. last night. "You have abandoned your family." I stared at those words. Abandoned. I thought about the cashmere wrap in the donation bin. I thought about the Mother's Day brunch I paid for but didn't eat. I thought about the years of being the backup plan, the fixer, the wallet. I hadn't abandoned them. I had just resigned. I showered, put on my sharpest blazer, and went to work. At 10 a.m., my desk phone rang. It was the reception. "Ms. Vance, there's a gentleman here to see you. He says he's your father." I froze. My hand hovered over the receiver. He had never come to my office, not once. He didn't even know which floor I was on. He had driven into the city, navigated the parking garage, and talked his way past security because the tax deadline was today at 5 p.m. and he was desperate. "Did he have an appointment?" I asked. "No, ma'am. He seems agitated." I closed my eyes. This was it. The confrontation I had been avoiding with silence. He was downstairs, probably wearing his golf club jacket to look important, trying to bully the receptionist into letting him up so he could guilt me into writing a check. "Tell him I'm in a meeting," I said. "He says it's an emergency, family emergency." "It's not," I said, my voice steady. "Tell him I'm unavailable until further notice. And Sarah?" "Yes?" "If he doesn't leave, call security." Silence on the other end. Then, a professional click. I hung up. I walked to the window and looked down at the street, 20 stories below. I couldn't see him, but I knew he was there, being escorted out. The tax bill was $2,500. They had a credit card limit of $500, which was now canceled. They had savings of 0, and the clock was ticking. I didn't watch my father leave the building, but I felt the vibration of his exit in the soles of my feet, a tremor of old guilt that I promptly stomped out. He had been escorted out by a guard named Gentle Ben, a man who usually spent his days smiling at couriers, but today had to physically block a 60-year-old man from entering the elevator bank. It was over. Finally. I went back to my desk. I unlocked my computer. I navigated to the county tax assessor's website, a public portal where anyone with an address and a parcel number can see the payment status of a property. I typed in 142 Maple Drive. Status, paid. No, wait. Status, unpaid. The deadline was 5 p.m. It was 4:58 p.m. I hit refresh. The little circle spun, mocking me with its cheerful blue buffering, while I imagined the chaos unfolding at the county clerk's office or, more likely, at their kitchen table. They were probably trying to pay online. They were probably entering the number for the emergency card ending in 8890, the one they thought was just glitching or under review. Refresh. 5:01 p.m. The status changed. It didn't flash red or sound a siren. It just quietly updated a single field. Current status, delinquent, penalty applied, 10%. Lien pending, 30 days. I closed the tab. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. I felt the cool, clean satisfaction of a spreadsheet that finally balanced to zero, even if the numbers were ugly. The phone on my desk rang. It wasn't reception this time. It was an outside line. I let it go to voicemail. Then my cell phone started. Mom, Chloe, Dad, Mom again. I turned it over, face down. A few minutes later, Marcus walked into my office. He looked at the phone buzzing against the mahogany, then at me. "Everything okay, Vance?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. "Reception said there was a disturbance." "Just a vendor dispute," I said, my voice steady. They were trying to change the terms of the contract at the last minute. I held the line. "Good," Marcus said. "I like that. You don't blink." "I try not to." "Listen," he said, stepping inside and closing the door. "The London transition. We've been talking about sending a senior ops director over there to handle the Brexit logistics before the deadlines hit. It's a 6-month secondment, maybe longer." London. I looked at the skyline of the city where my family lived, the city where I was the backup plan, the ATM, the selfish daughter. London was 3,000 miles away. It was an ocean of silence. "When do I leave?" I asked. "Ideally, 2 weeks, but we need an answer by Friday." "I'll go," I said. Instantly. "I can be ready in 1. Marcus grinned. "That's what I'm talking about. I'll have HR draft the paperwork." He left. I was going to London. I spent the next hour clearing my inbox, responding to every flag, every query, every little red exclamation point. At 6:30 p.m., I finally checked the voicemail my mother had left at 5:05 p.m. I put my headphones in. "Elena," she was hysterical. "The card didn't work. We tried to pay the tax online and it said invalid merchant or something. We called the bank and they said the account was closed. Closed! How could you close it today of all days?" She took a breath, a jagged, wet sound. "There's a penalty now, 10%, and if we don't pay in 30 days, they put a lien on the house. Do you know what that does to our credit? We can't refinance. We can't do anything." Then the anger broke. "You planned this. You knew. You let us think we were safe and you pulled the rug out. I don't know who you are anymore." I deleted the message. I didn't save it. I didn't forward it to Chloe. I just pressed 7 and watched it vanish into the digital ether. She was right about one thing. She didn't know who I was anymore. She knew the daughter who craved approval so badly she would pay for her own exclusion. That daughter was gone. I drove home. My apartment felt different tonight, less like a home, more like a staging area. I started packing, not just a suitcase, but boxes. I called a storage company. I called a leasing agent to sublet my place. Wednesday came. I got a letter in the mail. It wasn't a bill. It was a card from Chloe. Inside was a picture of the twins and a handwritten note. Mom is a mess. Dad isn't sleeping. They're talking about selling the boat to pay the tax lien. I hope you're happy. You ruined the summer. The boat. My dad loved that boat. It was a money pit, a fiberglass hole in the water that he poured cash into while complaining about the price of milk. He had bought it 3 years ago instead of funding his retirement account. Selling the boat, I whispered. It sounded like a responsible financial decision. I took the card and put it in the shredder. The twins' smiling faces turned into confetti. I didn't reply to Chloe. Instead, I sent a single email to the family group address, the one they used for holiday planning and guilt trips. Subject: Update. Hi, everyone. Just wanted to let you know I've accepted a promotion that requires immediate relocation to the UK office. I'll be leaving next week. Given the time difference and the workload, I won't be reachable by phone for the foreseeable future. Regarding the financial confusion, the credit card was compromised, as I mentioned. I closed the account to prevent further fraud. I trust you'll handle your household expenses moving forward. Best, Elena! I hit send. Then I blocked their numbers. Not do not disturb. Blocked. I didn't want to see the fallout. I didn't want to read the begging, the bargaining, or the threats. I was entering a tunnel, and I wasn't going to look back until I saw daylight on the other side of the Atlantic. So I packed. I sold my car, the charcoal sedan I had bought to impress them. I sold my furniture. I streamlined my life down to 2 suitcases and a carry-on. On June 20th, I stood in the international terminal at JFK. I bought a first-class ticket with the miles I had racked up on my own credit card, the one they never touched. I sat in the lounge drinking champagne, watching the planes taxi on the tarmac. I had $15,000 in my savings account, money that would have gone to the lien, the boat, the Cape Cod rental. My phone was quiet. It was a new number. I had changed it that morning. I looked at the boarding pass. London Heathrow. I wasn't running away. I was just finally, logically, routing the shipment to a recipient who would actually appreciate it. Me. London in November is a different kind of gray than back home. It's steeper, older, and smells like damp wool and expensive coffee. I had been there for 5 months. My flat in Kensington was small, smaller than my walk-in closet in the States, but it was quiet. No one called me to fix a printer. No one texted me to ask for a loan to cover a bounced check. And honestly, I didn't miss it. I was walking to the tube station on a Tuesday, wrapped in a trench coat I'd bought with the money I didn't spend on the Cape Cod rental, when I saw it. A boat, not a real one. A model ship in a toy store window. It had a little red "for sale" sign on it. I stopped. I hadn't checked on them. I hadn't unblocked their numbers. I hadn't even logged into my old email address since June. But curiosity is a logistics problem. You can't solve it without data. So, I went to a cafe. I ordered a flat white. I opened my laptop. I connected to the Wi-Fi. I didn't call them. I wasn't crazy. I went to the county tax assessor's website again. Parcel 142 Maple Drive. I typed it in, my fingers hovering over the keys like I was defusing a bomb. Status. Paid. My stomach tightened. Had they found the money? Had Jeff finally gotten that commission? Had I failed to teach them the lesson? Then I clicked on Transaction History. Payment source, title transfer/liquidation of asset. Date, August 14th, 2019. They hadn't paid it with cash. They hadn't paid it with income. They had paid it by selling something big. I opened a new tab. I went to the local marina's listing page, the one my dad used to browse obsessively. I searched for the Sea Star. Sold. Price, $28,000. They took a loss. I leaned back in the creaky wooden chair. They sold the boat. My dad's pride and joy. The thing he loved more than he loved fiscal responsibility. The thing he bought 3 years ago instead of paying off his credit cards. Gone. But wait. There was more. I did a search for Chloe. Not on social media. I had deleted mine. But on LinkedIn. There was a new update. Chloe Vance, sales associate at The Gap. Started September 2019. Chloe, working retail, folding sweaters. dealing with customers who probably treated her the way she used to treat me. I laughed. It wasn't a mean laugh. It was a startled, genuine sound that made the barista look over. They were surviving. They weren't destitute. They weren't homeless. They were just living the real life they had always lectured me about. They were paying bills. They were sacrificing luxuries. They were figuring it out without the Elena safety net. I closed the laptop. I felt lighter. December arrived. The city turned into a glittery, festive maze of lights and markets. I spent Christmas Eve alone, but it wasn't lonely. I walked along the Thames, watching the fireworks reflect in the dark water. I had a new phone number, but I still had one tie to the old life. My P.O. box back in the States. I had set up a forwarding service to scan anything that looked important. On December 26th, I got an email from the service. Scanned item, holiday card. I opened the attachment. It was a photo of the family. They were in the living room. The tree was smaller this year, artificial, not the expensive Fraser fir I used to buy. My dad looked thinner. My mom wasn't smiling with her teeth. Chloe looked tired. And there was a note. Dear Elena, we hope you're safe. We hope you're happy. We sold the boat. Dad is working part-time at the hardware store. It's been hard. We miss you. Not for the money. Just, we miss you. Please call. I stared at the screen. Not for the money. They had to say it. They had to explicitly rule it out because they knew, finally, that the money was the only language we had spoken for a decade. I hovered my mouse over the reply button. I could type a short note. Glad you're doing okay. I could send a gift card. I could open the door just a crack. But then I remembered Mother's Day. I remembered the brunch, the exclusion, the technical glitch with the credit card, the way they had cannibalized my success to feed their own comfort. If I replied now, the cycle would restart. It might take a month. It might take a year. But eventually, the emergencies would return. The loans would come back. The entitlement would creep in like black mold. I wasn't their savior. I was their enabler, and by leaving, I had forced them to become the adults they claimed to be. I clicked delete. Then I clicked empty trash. I closed the browser. I picked up my black notebook, the ledger. I turned to the last page. December 31st, 2019. Assets: freedom, solitude, self-respect. Liabilities: none. I took a pen. I drew a thick double line at the bottom of the page, the accounting symbol for closed. I stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the London fireworks were starting, signaling the end of the year, the end of the decade. The sky exploded in gold and silver. I raised my glass of cheap, wonderful wine to the reflection in the glass, to the woman who disappeared, to the woman who finally learned that the most expensive thing you can own is your own peace of mind. And honestly, it was worth every penny.